Welcome back, everybody, to the Victory Podcast. I'm your host, Steve McGrath, alongside Chris Haddad, as always, and we have yet another very special guest with us. Our guest today has had a career that spans 4 decades, 23 seasons kicking in the NFL. John Carney, most notably with the Chargers and the Saints, was a 2-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. When he retired, he was 3rd all-time in points scored in the NFL, and among a host of other accolades that we will dive into a little bit later. John, thank you so much for coming on with us this morning.
Steve and Chris, my pleasure. Thank you.
You know, I actually, when we were looking at your career, John, I noticed that you were all-state as a punter in high school. So I wanted to ask you, just from the jump, how did you get involved in kicking punting? Obviously, you were a very talented punter as well. So how did you initially realize that you had a gift for kicking, punting? And how did you ultimately decide to become a kicker as opposed to a punter?
Good question. So actually, I went to a high school. Soccer really was my passion at that time, and playing the trumpet, believe it or not. And so those were my 2 passions at the time I went to high school. It became clear to me that football was the cool thing to do. We had a great football program at Cardinal Newman High School down in West Palm Beach, Florida. We had a great football coach, legendary football coach, Coach Sam Budnick, who is in the Hall of Fame of Florida high school sports and just set all kinds of records. Amazing man. So it was pretty much understood. It was a rite of passage if you're a male at our school to go out for the football program. So my sophomore year, that's what I did. And I found that sitting on the bench wasn't that much fun. I thought I was a receiver. That soon came clear that I wasn't. So, but the guys that were running the football were football guys, not soccer guys. And so I figured, hey, if I can kick a soccer ball, I'll figure out how to kick this football. Went to a Garrow Premium soccer camp. It was a soccer kicking camp to date myself. Garrow was just finishing up his NFL career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after a long career with the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
And so that was my first instruction on how to kick or punt a football. And from that point, I went to JV, went to varsity my junior and senior year, but never had dreams or aspirations of playing football in college. I thought soccer would be what I would be playing if I played any sport in college. So football worked out well. We had a great running back by the name of Alonzo Jefferson, who was all-world, and he chose to go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame was chasing him quite a bit, and so as a concession, they took me as a walk-on to Notre Dame as a place kicker, and I was thrilled to the moon to have an opportunity. And you mentioned about punting. So I did both punting and kicking. At the time Notre Dame recruited me, they said, we don't have a kicking job open, but we have a punting job open. So I spent a lot of time punting going into my freshman year. As it turned out, the punting job was not open, but the kickoff job was. And fortunately, I had an opportunity to kick off for the University of Notre Dame my freshman year.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I wanted to ask that. Second off, was you ended up going to Notre Dame in the mid-'80s. So I was just curious as to, how they came about. Were they offering scholarships? And I mean, you said that you had walked on, but so it was actually they were chasing a teammate of yours. But what they didn't know at the time, but they do know now, is that they were getting the man that would ultimately name to the Notre Dame All-Time roster as I believe it was a kicker. So I think that trade worked out pretty well for them.
It worked out well for all of us. And unfortunately, my friend Alonzo Jefferson, the running back, he had an terrible ACL injury his junior year playing against Michigan. And back then in the mid 80s, ACL surgery was not what it is today. And he did come back, but was never the same. Unfortunately, did not have a pro career, which he would have had, of course, ACL surgery been better back then. But again, I'm very fortunate to end up there and kick, and just a lot of fun, a great experience. And the coolest thing of the whole situation now is my son is at Notre Dame, and he is a quarterback as a sophomore. He's in the quarterback corral, and hopefully someday he'll get some playing time.
Well, I'm sure he's going to get a lot of good experience this upcoming month. There's a once-in-a-lifetime possible opportunity.
Absolutely. Got to beat them Clemson Tigers.
That's right. So, John, I want to fast forward here to the NFL. You ultimately went undrafted Do you, and I want to start, do you remember getting your first try with the Bengals and what that was like? You know, you were being released, you sat out in 87. You take us through that experience of just getting into the NFL and the challenges of having to work through, you know, getting released, getting the tryout, and then having to sit out.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as many college seniors, they feel, of course, I'm just going to step right into the NFL and continue my career.
Sure.
There's not going to be any hiccups, and it'll be a smooth transition. Well, for kickers and punters, it's not that smooth. As we see recently, a lot of great kickers and punters coming out with great college accolades have struggled in the NFL, and that's my passion now, because I went through that same experience of sharing with them what's different about the NFL from college and how to make that next step and make it a smooth transition and understand what's expected of you at the NFL, which is not expected of you at the college level. But you mentioned Cincinnati Bengals. I went there, thought I had an opportunity to beat out a veteran by the name of Jim Breach, who had been there for 10 or 11 years. That wasn't the case. Jim really well. I learned a lot from Jim Breach. I understood how accurate and how consistent you needed to be at the NFL level. And he was extremely accurate. I don't think he missed a field goal the entire training camp, which was impressive to me. There was another young kicker with me at the time, Massimo Manca from Penn State. We both kicked the ball higher and further than Jim Breach, but he kicked it a lot straighter. And so quick, that's the name of the game. And then put the ball through the uprights. Kicking it super high and super far doesn't always win you the job. So learned a lot and had to go back to the lab, really back to home in Florida, and work on my game mentally and physically, and certainly iron out my skill so I would be more competitive the next opportunity I would get.
And then ultimately you got that opportunity in San Diego. Can you talk about what clicked there? What, you know, made San Diego, what made it work in San Diego?
Well, I had a couple of years in between there with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as their training camp kicker, their backup kicker. Of course, during the season, they don't carry backup. So you go home and you continue to train and work part-time jobs. And that's another interesting balance that guys have to work on when they're not picked up right away. But got some good experience. Tampa Bay did bring me back for a few games in 88 and a few games in 89, which was really good to get my feet wet in the regular season. And when I came out to San Diego, I finally built a toolbox of tools that made me more competitive and more capable of sticking with the team. Competed with Fuad Revez, who was a veteran out of the Miami Dolphins. Had spent, I think, 3 or 4 years with Dolphins and had some injury problems that they finally got tired of. And so he came out to San Diego. We had a great competition. They ended up going with Fuad at the end of preseason because of his experience, although I felt that I'd put up a good fight. Fuad just never got into the rhythm when the season started. They brought me back game 5, and Fuad ended up in Minnesota with the Vikings and had another 3 or 4 great years with the Vikings.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the mental emotions that you've gone through, the roller coaster ride, right? Of just going, you know, from getting picked up and then you're back home working a part-time job and then you're back here and then all of a sudden, you know, like I said, you landed in San Diego and things click for you. 11 years there. And, you know, I got to ask, you played in San Diego. Junior Seau, which I saw him on your website too, was a close friend. What was it like playing with Junior Seau, and what kind of guy was he? You know, what kind of teammate was he being in San Diego?
Well, one of the best teammates you could ever.
Yep.
He prepared like nobody else. And then a guy that he mentored, Rodney Harrison. As you have seen, Rodney was a phenomenal career. Rodney, as soon as he got to the Chargers, he realized real quickly who he wanted his mentor to be, and that was Junior Seau. Very smart on his part. But Junior was an amazing friend, a great teammate. Like I said, prepared like no other. He had what he called the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club was anybody who wanted to join him at 6 a.m. for a workout in the gym at the facility would work out with him, of course. Heck of a workout. But also, my friends are walking in, my clients. But also, he would feed them breakfast, and they would go watch film prior to the first meeting at 8 a.m. So by the end of the season, the Breakfast Club would have about 15 guys in it, and of course, building camaraderie, but also preparing guys better for each and every day of the season. But love the guy. Really unfortunate the way things ended for him, but just an amazing man on and off the field.
Yeah,
that's great.
Wild.
Yeah.
So like Chris had said, though, 11 seasons in San Diego. Can you walk us through what it was like? At this point, you are quite the established kicker, but you enter free agency, and then you begin another, great tenure as the New Orleans Saints. But what was it like for you going through that process and kind of figuring out where's the next place that you want to call home?
Well, I always assumed, we don't want to assume, I assumed I was going to hire San Diego Charger and, get the parade and all that fun stuff. But that didn't happen. We had a new general manager come in. It was evident within 2 years that he was flipping the roster, which he did. Within 3 years, from the year 2001 to 2003, he had changed the entire roster except for 2 players, a nose guard and our long snapper, David Binn, great long snapper. And those are the only 2 guys he kept. So the Rodney Harrisons, the Junior Seaus, you name it, everybody cleared out. I just happened to be on the front end of that clear out. It was frustrating. It was very disappointing to be told, hey, we're going another direction. Thanks for your effort. Good luck. And so I spent an entire offseason really at home training, wondering, what's going to happen this fall. Will I get a call? Is there a need for, I don't know, at the time, maybe I was 37 or 38 years old. The Saints called me up a couple weeks into training camp, and it was certainly a huge change and adjustment, but loved my time at the New Orleans Saints. They welcomed me with open arms. Ironically, the general manager, Randy Mueller, who was at the Saints at the time, had been with the Seattle Seahawks for many years, and he had seen me twice a year for many years. Back then, Seattle was part of our division. So that was a nice connection. It was nice to see a friendly face, and couldn't be more thankful for my experience at the New Orleans Saints. Football is amazing down in New Orleans. They love their Saints, and they love their LSU Tigers. So it was really exciting for me and my family to go down and be a part of the New Orleans community and the New Orleans Saints football team.
That's great. And so, John, I want you to brag a little bit. I know you're a humble guy, but I want you to brag a little bit. What made John Carney so great in the NFL?
I don't know.
Putting a lot on you here with it. I mean, from a mental standpoint, was it the ability to just kick and forget, or I'm sure that obviously had to play a huge part in it. But I want to get into the mind of John Carney a little bit of why you think that you kick so well for as long as you did.
Not a lot of room in there, Chris. The 3 years of me out of active football, so leaving Notre Dame and the tryouts, the training camps, the competing against veterans, the experience of hanging out with other veterans in training camp and watching what made them tick and what made them successful really helped me build, again, that toolbox of skills and experience that certainly benefited me once the Chargers decided to keep me around for a season and then 11. So that was a big part. I think my faith in God, that I had he gave me some skills and I was going to maximize those skills to the best of my ability, that everything wasn't going to be a piece of cake, that there was going to be failure down the road, but sometimes there's a reason for that failure. We certainly learn more from our failures than from our successes. And certainly I tried my best to learn as much as I could when the ball wasn't going through the uprights. I think I was realistic, at times with my training, but I always wanted to improve. When the season ended, those 3 months between the end of the season and reporting back to the team in late March, early April, I wanted to be bigger, better, stronger, faster, smarter. So I used those months to improve myself as opposed to vacationing or
taking days off. Sure. Yeah.
I knew what it was like to be unemployed, to be an unemployed place kicker. I knew that wasn't that much fun. And so I really wanted to put every effort I could into mentally, physically, spiritually, into my training and into my performance, and take it as seriously as I could to make this career something I'd be happy about.
Yeah, and ultimately your success depends on the success of the long snapper and the holder as well, right? How often did you spend with those guys in the off season, but as well as in season too, just making sure that the timing and everything else was perfect?
Absolutely, and that's a big part of it. You can be a great kicker, but if your snapper and holder aren't doing a good job, then you're going to struggle, regardless of how good you are. It's just you need those guys in your life, and so certainly in the off season, we trained a lot with them. I was very blessed to have some great holders and snappers over the course of my career. I mentioned David Binn earlier. David Binn spent 17 years at the San Diego Chargers. Amazing long snapper, but that chemistry really important, and so. And we end up cycling through holders a little bit more than centers. Punters come and go, quarterbacks come and go. Teams would like to hold on to their long snapper for as long as possible. Hopefully that guy stays consistent with you. But certainly a very considerable amount of work goes into that operation being smooth. And when you watch that on Sundays on TV, it just looks so easy. They make it look easy, but there's many, many hours of preparation that go behind them snapping, holding, and kicking that football and making it look smooth and making it look easy.
Yeah, it is so fluid, right? But then the only time people notice is when it goes wrong, and it's like, oh, what happened? But
Exactly.
99.9% of the time it goes right, and people don't even think about it.
That's right. And so you'll hear snappers, holders, kickers. If they're not talking about me, then things must be going well.
And kind of along those lines of what to me sounds like the kicker, the play, so a lot of it's underappreciated. So along those same lines, what I'd kind of alluded to in the intro, I just wanted to rattle this off. You are currently 5th all-time in scoring. You're the all-time Chargers scorer. You're in the Saints Hall of Fame, 50 greatest Chargers. You were part of the Saints team the year that they won the Super Bowl. I mean, what else does a man need on his resume to get Hall of Fame consideration? No. I mean, I don't mean to put it on you because I know Chris already put you on the spot, but does it ever cross your mind, like, why is it that, someone with my resume doesn't have the buzz that some of these other guys do? Like, why do kickers just not get the love?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I've talked to some national media over the years, media that does have a vote for the Hall of Fame. They're not big fans of kickers and punters. It's pretty obvious when you look at the Hall of Fame. We have one punter, Ray Guy, and it took, 30 or 40 years to get him in there. Yeah. And we have Morton Anderson.
Yeah.
Just inducted a couple years ago, and Jan Stenerud. That's it. In fact, there should be some long snappers. Steve Tasker, one of the best cover guys ever. One of the best special teams guys ever. I think 11 or 12 Pro Bowls in a row. Steve Tasker. Why isn't Steve Tasker in the NFL Hall of Fame? So I don't know what it is. I'm hoping at some point the NFL, the people that vote, understand the impact that so many special teams guys have on the game. The games that are decided with great coverage, great returners, Morton Anderson making game-winning field goals. So. And punters flipping the field. Darren Bent, a good friend of ours. Darren I played with here in San Diego for many years. Darren revolutionized the game of punting because he came from Australia, and he brought in the Aussie rules drop punt, which is now the end-over-end punt that every punter hits when they're going inside the 20. And it's very accurate. It's a phenomenal punt. He introduced that to the NFL. Why isn't he being considered another guy who was a 2-time Pro Bowler? Why isn't he considered as an NFL Hall of Fame candidate? So it's too bad. It's unfortunate that these guys are getting overlooked, and I hope someday the committee will see the impact these guys have had on the game and give them their due.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. When Chris and I have a little bit more clout, we'll make a few phone calls on your behalf. But
might be a couple.
Might be waiting a while. Yeah. Well. John, what I wanted to ask, is, obviously, all this. Why wouldn't you just stick with the NFL coaching route? But quite obviously, you took that to what I believe to be the next level. You opened up the Carney training facility. So I know that right as your career ended, you spent time in a consultant coaching type of capacity. How long did it take you to decide, what? I want to open up my own facility where guys can come train. Can you just tell us, like, how did that come? When did that become an idea, and how did you take that to what it is today?
Well, At the end of my career, guys like Steve Weatherford, a really good friend of mine, Steve and I played together at the New Orlean Saints, and he and some of his friends started training with me in the off season in the mid 2000s, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so I had a gym in my garage, and so they come out, what's Carney doing? How's he lasting so long? Let's try here. Here he has a pretty good training program. Let's, check this out, experience this. Nick Folk was another guy who came out a lot, and it started before my career ended. That this off season, my off seasons here in San Diego, we were starting to build up a good little group, a good little roster of NFL specialists that were training with us. And so when I did retire, Steve, my good buddy, was still playing with the Giants and winning the Super Bowls, and now he's Mr. Fitness. WeatherfordFitness.com. Steve's amazing. And so I decided, okay, let's move this out of my garage. Okay, my wife really doesn't want 10 guys here every morning, so we'll go to basically a warehouse. I'm in a warehouse gym. We have an office here. We can review film here. We can cover a lot of aspects of kicking and punting and long snapping here. We have the facility where we can do skill-specific training for their strength and conditioning. So important that these guys are training correctly for their skill. And unfortunately, a lot of specialists, when they go to college, even sometimes when they go to the NFL, they're handed a workout that belongs to a defensive back or a tight end or a quarterback. Here you go. This is your workout, and it's not skill specific to what we do. So I wanted to share that with the next generation of specialists. This is what I learned. This is what I continue to learn from the NFL guys that come here in the off season. Let's get you to the best player, kicker, punter, long snapper you can be by training correctly for your skill. Well, say hello. I got a special guest here, podcast, Stephen Chris. This is Mr. Nick Novak, one of my guys.
Oh, all right.
Hey, how we doing, Nick?
Illustrious career.
Absolutely.
And I've known Nick for many years, and we trained together, we competed against each other, we played against each other, and he's still at it. So he pops in every once in a while for a little workout.
Yep.
He's a good
to have. Just following you on Instagram and seeing the guys that you have in your network of guys that you've trained with that have gone on to be successful. It's excuse me, pretty incredible. Just the network of you guys of I guess with social media, it becomes more and more evident that the connection that you guys have to one another. It's not just facing each other on the gridiron. It's a legitimate support group outside of actually playing. How guys are training together. It's really pretty unique for us as outsiders to sit back and watch.
It really is. It is a fraternity of specialists. We support each other, push each other, motivate each other, teach each other in the off season. Of course, when the season starts, we kind of go back into our own little shell, and it's all about playing and performing for our team and doing the best we can. But certainly, it's a fraternity that, and quarterbacks do the same thing. They get together in the off season. It's skill specific training, and only Nick and myself and other kickers and punters that we hang out with, they are the only ones that really know what we go through on a day-to-day basis, the successes and failures that we experience on the field, how to deal with those, how to prevent those, how to get through those.
Definitely. And Nick, since we have you here, do you have any insights for any young up-and-coming kickers? Well, we've been able to pick John's brain for the last 30, 40 minutes. Is there anything that you have that you would give to a young 16, 17-year-old high school athlete looking to follow the same career path that you guys have blazed?
I started out watching a lot of kickers and punters in college and pros. So I would, turn on the TV if I could get any. And now, again, you mentioned social media. You can find a lot of great videos and tutorials on YouTube or on the internet about good kicking, good punting, good form, good mechanics. Now, there is a lot of misinformation out there as well. So I had to create a DVD to make sure that the right information was out there. So that's Kick, Punt, Train Like a Pro DVD. We cover kicking and punting and some training in the weight room, and we talk a lot of aspects of kicking and punting and mechanics. That DVD is available at my website, carneycoaching.com. It's also available on Amazon. But make sure that who you're listening to when you are getting coached is a credible, valid source. Unfortunately, there's some pretenders out there. You want to go to someone like a Nick Novak who's been there, done that, and he's going to give you the right information.
We'll make sure we plug that on our website too, Steve.
We'll definitely throw that link up there. Yeah, and I mean, your website, John, is awesome, carneycoaching.com. Do you have any events or anything in particular coming up?
We do. Thanks for asking. We have the Carney Ultimate Specialist Camp. We hold that at the Olympic Training Center here in San Diego, so an amazing venue. It's where our Olympians train. There's a lot of Olympians down there training right now for the 2020 Summer Olympics. So Olympic training facility. So it's called the Carney Ultimate. Someone called in.
No worries. Yeah, we're still here. Yep.
We're still here.
Carney Ultimate Specialist Camp, and you can sign up for that at carneycoaching.com. The holiday special ends December 14th, so if you want to save some money, sign up before December 14th. The camp is January 4th, 5th, and 6th. You arrive on a Friday night. We go 48 hours. Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, we're done Sunday afternoon, and we cover soup to nuts, punting, kicking, mental game, you name it, mechanics. We have a great staff. All the staff are guys that I coach that are presently on their journey of their careers. They're either juniors or seniors in college, or guys that are NFL free agents, or even some NFL retired guys coming to teach and coach and mentor these kids. It's a great opportunity. It's a great camp.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have that on the website.
Yeah.
John, before we get you out of here, I just real quick, I have a couple of very quick questions for you. We call it the Gauntlet. So I just need to know, firing from the hip here, what's most important, having the number 1O or number 1D?
Number 1D.
Now, I know this is tough because you played with so many, but
Dicker has to.
Who would you say in your entire career was either the best coach or the best player that you had ever lined up alongside or played for?
My two favorite head coaches, actually I have three, but Bobby Ross here in San Diego took us to the Super Bowl. Tom Coughlin, who was with the Giants when I was with Tom Coughlin my 1 year with the Giants, amazing coach. Both those guys had a very good balance of positive and negative reinforcement. They weren't all one or the other. They were all business, and they were all football, and they knew everything that went on in the organization, and just amazing guys. And I don't want to say they didn't micromanage, but they certainly had their hands in everything. And they joke. You've heard the joke. They knew how many towels each guy's used out of the shower, and who was at the workouts early and who missed workouts. I mean, they're just amazing football men. And then Sean Payton is probably a younger version of those two guys. Sean's probably got more personality than those guys. But Sean spent some time with Bill Parcells at the Dallas Cowboys, and so he brought some of that old school discipline and football 24/7 with him. So those are my three top head coaches.
Now, do you have a favorite kick of your career, favorite football memory?
A couple. One is when I was with the San Diego Chargers. We were actually winless going into week 12 or 13, and we kicked a 52-yard field goal against the Chiefs for our only victory of the season. Obviously, it was a very sad season, but at that point, the team and the coaches were all very excited that we were not going to be the first team in NFL history to go 0-16. The Detroit Lions did everybody that favor a few years later, and then, of course, the Browns did that. What was that, last year? But, no one wanted that on the resume. No one wants 0-16 on the resume. And so that was an exciting game. That was an exciting victory for us. And then the Saints, when I was with the Saints right after Hurricane Katrina, of course, things were a mess in the city. It was really a horrible situation. And we go to Carolina for our first regular season game. They're chosen to win the division, very strong team. And we end up battling really well and kicking a 47-yarder to win the game. and hopefully lift some spirits in the Gulf South that was struggling so much with the aftermath of the hurricane.
I would imagine that it did. And last question for you. Of course, we know that specialists are creatures of habit. Is there one pre-game or even pre-kick ritual that you always had?
Well, I can't tell that secret, but yeah, Nick's here. I can't tell Nick everything. Yeah, I don't know. I think, I don't call them superstitions. I call them routines. So, after a while in the NFL, you have a special routine. When you wake up in the morning on Sunday morning, everything you do is a routine that you've done for years that has proven to be successful. So from the moment you wake up to the moment they blow that whistle and the game starts, to 3 hours later when the game ends, everything's very routinized. And but I wouldn't say that I had any huge superstitions, but I was probably much like a robot. Every Sunday I was kind of the same guy. I did have an equipment guy said that I have a big personality change on game day. I go from nice guy to scary guy. And I didn't understand that, except I don't talk. On game day, the only people I talk to are my snapper and my holder. And I try not to even talk to the coaches. So I've become very introverted and focused on the game.
Yeah, in the zone.
Yep.
Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time with us. We really appreciate it. We will have the Carney coaching stuff up so that anyone that visits us will be able to see it. Of course, we wish you nothing but the best and success for the training facility.
Steve and Chris, I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks.